What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Block Garage. As usual, we got more work to do on the 280Z today because we want to get this running for next spring. So we got important things to do today, and this is what I plan to work on at least first. So we need to figure out a way to get fuel from our tank, obviously up to the 2JZ. And we will not be using the stock setup with the inline fuel pump. We are going to be using this Aeromotive Phantom in-tank fuel pump. So I'll show you that in a little bit. This is what we are working with our stock tank. It is, as far as I know, good to go. I have checked this thing out, and it definitely needs cleanup and paint and all that stuff. However, it is solid, and the inside looks fine, so we're going to run with that. Now let me catch you up real quick on some stuff I've been doing off camera. So if you watched the last couple videos, you can see one big difference is we got the fenders back on. I had to get them out of the barn because we needed room. I didn't really have to. I could have found room for them, but I wanted to get them back on so they're not just sitting in there, and it looks nice having them on anyway. Obviously, got the flares and the mirrors back on too. What else have we been doing? I've been doing little stuff, like I hooked up a line for the brake booster with a check valve down there. We got the hood release on, so we got the cable in here, because one big thing is we need to make sure all the stuff that's coming from the interior, like, you know, this cable, we're going to get the throttle cable. I got to get the hood. Oh, that is the hood release cable. Anything else, I got to make sure we don't get anything else that has to come out here, just so that when we start mounting stuff, you know, for instance, we got to mount our fuel pressure regulator right there somewhere. That it's not in the way of the stuff that has to go there. I have determined where I'm going to run the wiring harness. We are going to do a hole basically right down underneath here, because it's going to come out right, right up there. And we're going to mount, obviously the harness is going to come here to our ECU. I'm going to mount my fuse panel right there. So we've got that stuff figured out, because we're going with a painless wiring system for the car, because we're redoing all of the wiring for the car body itself too. So that gets rid of that. Can't get the turbo finalized today because I'm still waiting on that 1-inch riser. No, I have the riser. I'm waiting on the longer studs. Obviously we need longer studs to hold that on. What else have I done? Oh yes, so the right bushings came in for the rear sway bar, so that is in. We got that in. I got that in yesterday, popped in nice and easy. So they sent me the correct bushings, no issues with that. That might be it. I did get a little more done on the interior. I popped these vents in. Oh, I put my Serial 9 shifter in there. At least, we had the base in there that goes in the transmission, but I popped the actual shifter in. You can see it's perfectly lined up in the hole for where the stock shifter goes in the center console. So we need to get working on this fuel tank, but the first thing I need to do is get this thing cleaned up, and then we'll get right to the action. All right, I got this thing all cleaned up, at least, as good as we can for now. I pressure washed the outside, and I rinsed the inside really good, because obviously we still have some fuel residue in there, and I don't need a spark from, the work we're going to have to do blowing this thing up. That obviously would not be good. So I rinsed that really, really good, and we should be all set. We're not going to be welding, so, there really is not a huge chance of, igniting the fumes in there. But hopefully we're good. So let's go over what we got here. So this is the Aeromotive Phantom in-tank fuel pump. And there's a reason that I went with this thing. There's not a lot of baffling in these tanks, although I didn't realize that there is some, because for the 280Zs anyway, I'm guessing the 240Zs and the 260Zs didn't really have any, because that's what everybody says. The 280Zs apparently have some, and I'm guessing because it's fuel injected, because it's got, it must be set up different, because there is a baffle right about there. And there's like a canister in there of some kind. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Maybe once we cut this open, we'll see. But it runs this fuel lines that run out of it to the inlet and outlet. So I don't know. We'll see what that is. But anyway, so this is what we're working with here. This is the Aeromotive kit. We've got a bunch of stuff in here. I'm guessing this is like hardware and stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of hardware. But the big thing is this right here. So this is going to be what we put in the tank. We're basically going to drill a hole right where we want it. It's going to go right there. It's got AN outlets for return, outlet, and vent. And, you know, just going to chill in there like that. But the big thing is this. So the fuel pump assembly sits down in this, and this acts as a baffle. It will, you know, obviously the fuel will go in, and this foam mesh stuff will keep it from sloshing around and ideally keep it near the fuel pump so that hard cornering, anything like that, hopefully we don't have any fuel starvation issues. So that was the reason that I went with this one. There are other ones similar, you know, similar idea. You know, you basically drill a hole, put a hat in, and you can put a modern fuel pump in, which is what we're doing, but they don't all come with this kind of setup. So it's fairly expensive, but obviously we don't want to have fuel starvation issues, especially under boost or something like that, and blow that 2JZ up. So we're going to get started, and it should be a fairly simple process, I'm thinking, because really all we're doing is cutting a hole, mounting this. Don't get much simpler than that. However, we will see exactly what's going to happen once we cut this open, because I don't know, there could be extra baffling in there that I can't see, and I don't know if we need to do anything with the inlet and outlet, because if you look over here, this is the inlet and outlet. This is the outlet. This is the inlet, you know, the return from the engine compartment. So we aren't going to be using these at all. So I'll probably end up just looping this or capping them off somehow. That's not a big deal. But it's just a weird setup. And this is our, you know, if you don't know, this is where the fuel level sending unit goes. This guy right here. So we can't do anything over here because we need to use this. So, and it's not flat over here anyway. These two right here are for the vent for the fuel tank. This has ventilation in it to begin with, and it goes up to that that auxiliary vent fume tank that goes in the inside of the rear quarter on the driver's side. And I don't know if we're going to use that, but for today, we're going to get this thing installed in here. So let's get started. So just to go over the stuff that is in here real quick, just for your reference, you can see it closer. This is the fuel hat assembly. We got this foam. I'm not sure what this is for just yet. And this is hardware kit and fuel pump in here. And this should be plenty of fuel pump for what we need. I don't remember exactly what it flows, but I'm sure we can figure it out. It's quite a while ago that I bought this stuff. So it should come with everything that you need to install one of these in your car. Other than obviously you got to get fuel lines and stuff up to you know, the engine stuff. So we got instructions here. So it should be fairly easy to follow. You know, got nice instructions, pictures, all that stuff. We'll get started with that in a second, but we got some stickers. So let's go throw one of these on the toolbox. So the instructions are pretty easy. The first thing we're going to do is take our assembly here. We're going to take it apart. We don't need this right now. And we don't need that. But this will come in handy in just a little bit. So we need to take this. This is what's going to mount inside the tank. Just like that. Studs are going to come up through and mount to our top hat assembly. And this gasket here is obviously what seals against the tank. But we're going to use this to mark where we figure out and mark exactly where we want it. We really, I mean, there really is not that much in our way here. I mean, we got plenty of flat area here. You know, we don't have to, like over here, we wouldn't be able to put it there because it's, you got this hump right there. So we have to go here. All right, so we're going to put this right about here. And that baffle, if you see this line right here, is right about there. So I don't want to get right up next to it. So I'm thinking we go right here. Now, it does sit right here on the car. That's where the mount is, right there and right there. But we have plenty of room there. We should be fine because it doesn't come. Yeah, we should be fine. So we're going to put this right, I don't know, somewhere right about there. And one thing you need to keep in mind is that your fuel pump also needs to be at the lowest part of the tank or you're losing fuel capacity. But this tank is flat all the way across the bottom. So we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to put it right there, and we're going to mark exactly where we want it. So that's where we're going to make our hole. So to drill that out, if you have a 3 1/4 inch hole saw, you can just drill right down through. I don't have one. So we're going to use the body saw. Should be fairly easy. But I need to get a hole first so that we get somewhere to start. Now, if you were worried about the metal shavings getting down in there, you can coat your drill bit in grease, and it'll help keep a lot of it out because they'll attach to the grease on your drill bit. But we're going to have to clean this out anyway, so I'm not worried about it. And then we'll just do right along the inside of my line that I made because that's right about 3 1/4 inches. Man, that vibrates a ton. There we go, got it off. I ended up doing most of it with the jigsaw because it didn't vibrate as much. This thing didn't want to really cut it, just vibrated this up and down. I think because the jigsaw you can hold it down with the base. This definitely worked better though. And looks like we got plenty of room in there. So let's move on to the next step. With our hole all set to go, next thing we're going to do is drill our holes for these studs to come up through. And that's what this piece is for. This is a drill guide. Basically, we're going to set this down in the hole, use it just drill our holes. Now, I want to make sure I get this exactly where I want this oriented, because obviously there's varying degrees of install direction, but basically we want it right about just like that. Oh, don't want to move it. Try again. Basically we want it just like that. Get this out of here without moving it. And the kit comes with the right drill bit even. Now to keep this from walking around on me, I got some similar sized drill bits that we're just going to pop down in the holes with some tape on them so they don't fall down in, and that will keep it from moving around. Now, this should fit right down in. It's close. Well, we got a little bit off. We might need to re-drill a couple of them. All right, with that ready to go, next thing we got to do is measure height from the top to the bottom of the fuel tank. And on this, it is about 10.5 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to shorten this up. So we want to take this, measure from the bottom with it all the way in, and add 1 inch to our measurement that we just had. So right now I don't even need to trim because it's like 11 3/4. So I mean that I don't think that 1/4 inch is going to matter. We're going to leave it just like that. But basically all you do is just mark up 1 inch. Say you had a 6-inch deep tank, mark it up 7 inches from the bottom, trim it off with a serrated knife of some kind. All right, make sure you reach down in there and wipe out all the crap you got down in there. There was quite a bit of metal shavings down in there and plastic from this thing, from drilling with this. Just make sure you get all that out. So next thing we're going to do is put our retainer ring on the bottom. You see it's C-shaped so that you can actually fit it down in the tank. So we got to get this thing in there and through the holes. Probably going to be a little tricky. Now I've got a little tube right here. It looks like a vent. Yeah. It's attached right there. It's open. Must be part of the stock ventilation, and I'm hitting. If I had cheated this over just a little bit towards the back, it would have been a little better. It is just in the way of getting this up through there, so I'm going to try and bend that a little bit. Now this little tube doesn't really matter where it's just a vent, so I mean if we happen to ruin it a little bit, not a big deal. Let's just tap this thing over. Let's see if that was enough. There we go. That was a little tough, but we got it. So next we want to do is put this installation ring back over because we're going to slide our foam down in, and this will help keep it from catching up on there and trying to, you know, snagging up and not wanting to go down in. So basically we're going to take this baffle and we are going to put it, squish it down in, basically. It's obviously going to be a very tight fit by design. So that should sit all the way down below that. Let's get this out of the way now. And we obviously want it centered as much as we can in the hole. Yeah, that looks good. Now let's put this thing away for a little bit. We don't need that anymore. So we're going to put our pump on our bracket here. Make sure you take that little plastic cap off. We're going to put our strainer on the bottom. Should just pop right on, I believe. Oh, that's got a cover on it too. So that pops on there just like that. So we've also got to trim our hose right here so that it obviously goes onto there. And we want the bottom of our fuel strainer right at that depth of our fuel tank. So right about there, I'm going to trim it on that black line right there. Then we can just install our fuel pump on here. Pop it on there. Don't forget hose clamp. Oops, tight fit on there. Then we'll take our 2 hose clamps and attach our pump to here. Ooh, we might need to shorten that up just a touch more. I've actually got to cut one more off of this because it's interfering with our strainer. So yeah, let me go cut one more. There we go, that's much better. So we'll get these on real quick. I don't know if you guys can hear Rex whining in the background, but Lila just came in to the garage and said hi because she had to leave. And he's whining because he doesn't get to go with her. There we go. And that is installed. Now, simple connection. Just plug this in right here. They got it all wired up for you. And this just kind of gets tucked out of the way. I think I might wire tie that. Yeah, I think I'm going to wire tie that just so that this doesn't vibrate all over the place. I don't want the wires obviously touching the metal bracket because then they are going to chafe, and obviously we don't want that. Actually, you know what? Yeah, we're just going to wire tie it to itself. Yep. I'm going to throw one wire tie around everything here, basically. Yeah, that'll be good. That'll keep everything from touching. All right, back to the fuel tank. We are going to drop this down in. So we're going to put our gasket on here. Now, I do see in the instructions that say it is okay to go over some ribbing. This will take up to 1.25 inches, and that's actually what they give you this stuff for if you need to go more than that. That seems kind of iffy to me, but they say you can, so I don't need to worry about that anyway because we got to get in a good position. So we'll just drop this down in, make sure nothing gets pinched, work it down into the foam because it's a little tight down in there. Drop it right on the studs. Look at that. Let's grab some of the nuts. So it says to get started, put 2 nuts on 180 degrees apart so you can start compressing. So we're going to do that because we've also got to put these nylon washers on there. So we're going to draw those 2 down to get it squished down and then do nylon washer nut, put the other ones on, and then take these ones back off to put the nylon washers on. All right, definitely got those drawn down enough. Let's throw our washers on. I'll pop these back out. Actually, I'm going to wind a couple of these down. Then we'll back these ones out. Put our other 2 washers on. What do you guys think about this setup, by the way? I mean, the original setup is just a cheap inline pump that would not be sufficient for a turbocharged engine, at least for what I need. So this is a great way, it seems to me, to modernize the fuel system. You know, using the stock fuel tank, you don't have to go to a fuel cell, anything like that. You know, that was an option. I didn't want to do that, but let me know what you guys think of this. All right, then we just tighten all these down until we got a nice tight seal. You don't have to cram it down a ton, but we want a nice tight seal, obviously, all the way around. And don't go in a circle across your pattern. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what you guys think of this, and maybe what you would have done or have done in the past. I know there's other options, and for instance, I could have gone with a poly fuel tank. There's a company that makes plastic fuel tanks. Would have been a good option if my fuel tank wasn't any good. But as far as I know, it's good. We still got to clean it up, and I don't think there's any holes in it, though. The surface rust on it's not nothing real bad, nothing I'm worried about. But a poly fuel tank is an option. I didn't go with it. One, because like I said, my fuel tank, as far as I know, is good. and 2, because it's an extra 700-ish bucks that I would have to spend. Trying to keep costs down as much as I can. Obviously, I'm not exactly rich, so anything we can do to keep the budget down helps a ton. But it is an option instead of trying to find a used tank that might not be any good. And as you tighten up the other ones, the first ones you've done will have loosened up. So make sure you go back over them. All right, that is done. It looks like we got some caps here to go on. Must be to go on here. Yeah, these must be to protect your positive and negative wires, because all we got to do now is connect the positive and negative right here for the fuel pump. Obviously, we got to do the lines up to the engine, the supply and return, but don't have to do that now. So that is pretty much it as far as I know. Let's look over this, make sure we didn't miss anything. Yeah, so that's it. We do got other stuff to go with this. I have an Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator that we're going to be using, and an Aeromotive fuel filter. Actually, let me go get those out. All right, so yeah, we got an Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. We'll stick up in the engine bay somewhere. And my mistake on this one, it's not an Aeromotive fuel filter, but it's a Summit fuel filter. We'll mount this underneath the car somewhere. So that's basically it for the fuel system. It's fairly simple. Obviously, like I said, we need to do lines still. And that's why I wanted to get this installed, so we can figure out exactly where it's going to go, what I need for fittings, and we got to get some line. 6 AN, I believe, is what this calls for. But that's pretty much it. This is done. So I guess that's about it that we need to do for this fuel pump install. Let me know what you guys think. I did pick this Aeromotive stuff up from Godzilla Raceworks. They sent that stuff to me, the fuel pressure regulator and the in-tank retrofit fuel pump. Obviously, I got the fuel filter from Summit, but yeah, this is a pretty simple process. Very easy to get that in there. Really, all you're doing is drilling a few holes and it drops right in. Really, really easy to do. It's a great way, in my opinion, to convert from an old, less than ideal fuel pump setup to a more modern fuel pump. So, and if, let's say that fuel pump didn't end up flowing enough, if we want to turn up the boost in the future and end up, making 1,000 horsepower, we could easily swap out that pump for a bigger one. But the one that's in there now is plenty for us to make the 500-ish that we're planning on making with the 2JZ. I obviously need to clean this up. It is pretty rough looking right now. I don't want to throw it back in looking like that. So I'm going to take some time this weekend. I got the rest of the weekend to do this, but clean this thing up, and I'll probably just rattle can it for now. Ideally, I would epoxy prime it and paint it, but it's too cold now. I can't do any of that stuff right now. So I debated just doing like Pour 15 brush on stuff, but I don't think it's worth it right now. Eventually, it will probably get pulled back out and properly epoxy primed and painted, but we're not going to worry about that now. So I'm gonna spend the rest of my weekend doing this terrible work, and I guess that's about it. We got plenty coming up on the 2JZ. Now that we know a couple of things that we need to do, get that wiring harness in where it needs to go. Hopefully that the studs I need to raise up the turbo will be here tomorrow. No, Monday. Be here Monday. Today's Saturday. So we can hopefully start on that. But then once that's in place, that's kind of what I'm waiting on, is that turbo to be finally finished mounted, because then I can do my intercooler pipes, get that done. That'll be a fun project. Yeah, we got plenty coming up to do. So let's think about all the stuff we got left. There really isn't that much. Let's what do we got? So we need to finish the fuel system. We got to run fuel lines and put the fuel pressure regulator somewhere. Relatively simple to do. We need to, and this is just for getting the 2JZ running. We need to finish up the oil supply and drain for the turbo. I believe once those studs come in, we'll be good with that. Obviously, we need to make our intercooler pipes like we just talked about. We need to do something for radiator hoses. Not terrible of a job, I don't think. We've talked about that a little bit in the past. What else? As far as, we need to finish up the wiring, obviously, because we can't do anything right now. I got to figure out what we're doing for wiring up the fuel pump and stuff like that. Well, actually, I don't have to figure it out because we got stuff that came with the wiring harness. I've got the option for that, so we should be good there. We'll obviously have to wire it. Really, I need to put the battery somewhere. We got to run battery cables. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. By the way, obviously, the original battery went right there. We got rid of that because I wasn't planning on putting it back there. My original plan is to put it in the back. Now, let's go back here real quick. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I showed you guys this. I wrapped the door handles so we get these on. I mean, that looks really nice, right? Just some 3M wrap I got from Amazon. I do know some people use these to put a small battery in, which is kind of nice. It hides it completely out of the way. I just don't know if it's something I want to do. The other option is to, like, I'd kind of like to keep those for storage. The other option to put it in the back here somewhere. If we're putting that vapor tank up there, we obviously, I don't know if I necessarily want the battery over there. Maybe we put it on this side because there's nothing that goes over here. But I don't want to just take up all my room back here either. So, and obviously it can't go up there anyway, right? So let me know what you guys think, because I could build a quick mount to put it back over there. That's, you know, there's no issue with that. Just aesthetically wise, I didn't want it up here and get some more weight in the back too. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But I guess we're going to end this one off here. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully you find it useful because, you know, you could use this not just on the 280Z, anything that has an old style fuel system, especially anything that's carbureted. That's the big thing with those is, you know, stuff that didn't have a fuel pump in the tank or anywhere near it. It had the, you know, the small 3 PSI or whatever fuel tank on the, or fuel pump on the engine, the mechanical pump. You know, that's really where these are designed to go, is to replace that stuff when you go to a, from carbureted to EFI. But anyways, I mean, you know, 240Z, 260Z are carbureted, you know, they would use this same thing. The fuel tank's a little bit different, but that baffling from the foam and everything in there is what really will help those ones, because if I remember right, the stock fuel tank on those ones either has no baffling or very, very little. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't, hit the bell notification icon, maybe become a YouTube member, maybe become a member of my Patreon. You know, it's up to you. We got t-shirts and stuff available. Blockgarage.myspreadshop.com. And anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.